So good morning students. Today we will start with the new phylum in animal kingdom, that is Phylum Arthropoda. And Phylum Arthropoda is the largest phylum in animal kingdom. Okay, whereas the phylum Hemichordata is the smallest phylum in animal kingdom, but Arthropoda is the largest phylum because it has many species. Arthropoda. So arthropoda means these are having jointed appendages. Appendages. So appendages means the structures which are coming from our main body. We call them as appendages. If you see in case of human beings, we have appendages like forelimbs and hind limbs. Those are arising from our main body. Okay. But in case of the arthropods, so there are jointed appendages. The appendages are aligned in a joint. Okay, so jointed appendages, and these are cytocoelomates like annelids. The coelom is the mesoderm splitted into the pouches, and we call it as cytocoelomates, and they are having bilateral symmetry. And no exoskeleton, no endoskeleton, and they are having exoskeleton. This is most important property of arthropods, and the exoskeleton is made by chitin. Chitin, it is homopolysaccharide. Homopolysaccharide. The technical term we call it as N-acetyl glucosamine. So usually chitin means a soft substance, but in case of arthropod, this chitin is very tough because the chitin is embedded with calcium ions. Okay, the chitin is embedded in calcium ions. So that is the reason it is very tough. Okay. Now the whole body is divides into head, thorax, and abdomen. And the entire body is covered by the exoskeleton, inner pieces, not the whole, the chitin piece, and these are called as sclerites. The sclerites. Okay, the exoskeleton plates, we call them as sclerites. So this is the dorsal sclerite, and we call them as tergum. And the ventral scleri, which is called as sternum, and the lateral scleri or pleura. So dorsal tergum, ventral sternum, lateral pleura, and they are not connected. They are the single piece. They are the pieces, and they join with very thin membrane, which is called as arthropodial membrane. arthropodial membrane. Okay. So the exoskeleton is made by the chitinous plates, and these plates are called as the sclerites. The dorsal sclerite is called as the tuncum, and the ventral is called as the sternum, and the lateral plates are pleura, and they interconnected with very thin membrane which is called as arthropodial membrane. Now these are the arthropods are first time they are showing voluntary muscles. So we have not seen any voluntary muscles so far in animal kingdom. So these are showing the voluntary muscles. Okay, there are muscles, dorsoventral muscles. So whenever the cockroach wants, they can fly off and they can walk. They can make a movements as per their wish. And the previous phylums we have not seen any voluntary muscles. Okay. So though they are having the muscles of longitudinal and circular muscles, those are involuntary muscles. The earthworms, whatever the animals we have seen so far, they can, those muscles are all involuntary muscles. The first time we will be seeing this voluntary muscles from arthropods. Okay. Now moving on to the systems, the digestive system here is very developed, well developed, with digestive glands, and these animals are having a different types of mouth parts. Mouth parts. There is a biting and chewing type. Example is cockroach, and piercing and sucking type. Example is mosquito and sponging. Examples are housefly. These mouth parts are seeing in first time in arthropods. Now the excretory system. In arthropods, the excretory product mainly ammonia. So these animals are can be described as aminotelic. There are urea also. Some sort of disturbance. 1 minute. Is it Lakshmi Priya?
Yes, it's creating some sort of disturbance like breaking. Is it only for me or for everyone? I don't know.
Okay. Now they are aminotelic, and they also release this uric acid, uricotelic. Okay. Now there are structures, the excretory structures, the mainly malpighian tubules, amphibian tubules, and there are urate cells, and there are antennary glands. They are just behind the antenna. They are also called as green glands. And there is a coxal glands. So we'll be studying all these structures when we are discussing the classes, different classes of arthropods. Now the circulatory system is open type again. So they are having the circulatory system, but the system is open type. Though they are having the heart, but ultimately the circulatory fluid, it revolves in the open space, that coelom. Okay. Now hence we are calling that it is hemocoel. The coelom of arthropods, we call it as hemocoel because the circulatory fluid we describe as hemolymph. There is no RBC and no hemoglobin. And this respiratory pigment is hemocyanin. Not all the classes, only few crustaceans are having this respiratory pigment, that is hemocyanin. And hemocyanin is a copper containing respiratory pigment. So that is can be seen in only crustacean class. But other classes, no respiratory pigment at all. There is no relation of the gaseous exchange. There is no relation gaseous exchange in the circulatory system. Okay, but in case of if you see the other animals, the gaseous exchange is takes place by the respiratory system as well as the circulatory system. But in case of the arthropods, except the crustaceans, so the gaseous exchange takes place by only the tracheal system. There is no role of the circulatory system. The circulatory system of these arthropods has the function of the supplying of the nutrients and removal of the wastages, all other functions. But the gaseous section is not there with the arthropods except crustaceans. Crustaceans are having the respiratory pigment, that is hemocyanin. Okay, the hemocyanin is the copper containing respiratory pigment. Okay, now moving on to the respiratory system. There are respiratory structures, the mainly by trachea. We call them as tracheal respiratory system, and this can be seen in cockroach. And there are gills. Examples are prawns, crabs. Okay, there are book gills. This can be seen in king crab, and there are book lungs. And book lungs can be seen in scorpion. So very important. So these are the different types of the respiratory systems. Now moving on to the reproductive system. The sexes are separate. We call them as sexual dimorphism. Fertilization is internal and development is direct, mostly. Fertilization is internal and development is direct, mostly. There are A few they are having the larval stages. Okay. And the classification part. So based on the appendages and excretory product and excretory structures. So we have divided this whole arthropod into 7 classes. Okay, very important. This is the largest phylum having many species. Okay, there are 7 classes. So the first one is Ornicophora. Ornicophora. The example is Peripates. The second class, Arachnida. Arachnida. Examples are spider, then Crustacea, the Crustaceae or the prawns and crabs, then Insecta, all insects, cockroach, mosquito, housefly, many, so many, honeybees, all these things. And Chilopoda. Examples are Chilopoda is centipedes, also called as centipodes. Centipodes, centipedes, they are same. And Diplopoda. Example are the millipedes. Millipodes are also can call, and Merostomata. Examples are king crab. These are the 7 classes: Arnicophora, Arachnida, Crustacea, Insecta, Chilopoda, Diplopoda, and Merostomata. Very important 7 classes, and examples also very important for NEET point of view, because we will be seeing certain important structures like respiratory structures and the excretory structures, even the body development and how these appendages are aligned, all these things. Okay, so let us start with Arnicophora, that is Peripates. Now the Peripates, Peripates is example of the connective link, because it shows the both the characters of arthropod characters and the annelid characters. So it is a very good example for the evolution that, so there are certain animals are sharing the common characters of the both the category. Okay, so they shows the annelids characters and as well as arthropod characters. Arthropod characters. So let us see what are the characters they shows of annelids. They show segmentation. Their body is segmented as like segmented body structure. Okay, and they also have the parapodia for the locomotion. Parapodia. And the excretory structures, they are showing this nephridia. They also have this arthropoda characters like the coelom. They have that filled with hemolymph. We call it as hemocoel. Okay, so they are having the hemocoel. The coelom which is filled by the hemolymph, they are not having the blood like annelids. Okay, and the respiratory systems are the tracheal system. So that is the reason. So we consider as a peripatus as a connecting link. So remember, the connecting link is different from missing link. Connecting link. The connecting link is a now existing animal. Even now also we can find this animal. They have the both the common characters of the two different categories. Whereas the missing link is it was existed, which is sharing the common characters of the two different groups. Okay, the peripatus is a such example for the connecting links. Now we'll move on to the crustacea. The crustacea, they includes the prawns, crabs, and daphnia. These are the examples for the crustacea. Okay. Now their body is divided into two parts. One is cephalothorax and abdomen. So cephalothorax, as name suggests, cephalo means head, thorax means chest part. The cephalothorax is formed by the fusion of both the head and thorax. Okay. Now the cephalothorax has a very tough covering which is made by the chitin, and it is even more tougher. We call them as carapace. Carapace. Okay. Now this is a very important point. The crustaceans are having a very tough carapace. If you can observe the crab, the large part of what is visible that is actually is made by the cephalothorax, and the cephalothorax is made by the very tough chitinous plates. Okay, these are called as the carapace, and they possess the five pair of walking legs. Walking legs. Okay, and the excretory structures are the green glands, or it is also called as antennary glands. Antennary glands. Now they shows the sexual dimorphism. Now let us see the examples also. So first is the prawn. They have a very large carapace. This is the part of the cephalothorax, and anterior side as the rostrum. Rostrum has this powerful teeth, okay, and one pair of bulgy eye. This is the bulgy eye, and the cephalothorax. It also has the one pair of antenna. Okay, and from cephalothorax there are the 5 pairs of walking legs. The 5 pairs of walking legs will rise, and the abdomen has 6 segments. One, two, three, 4, 5, and 6. There are 6 segments. Okay. From each segment, there are one pair of flap-like structures will start. So every segment has one pair. For up to the 5th segment. So these are called as uropods, sorry, epipods. They are called as epipods. So they are helpful for the swimming because the prawns are the aquatic animal. These are the walking legs. And the 6th segment has a epipods at the back end, posterior side. These are called as the uropods. And there is a long tail cell. This is the whole structure of the prawns. Okay, the next is the crab. And crab has a very large carapace when compared to the prawns. And the abdominal segments are highly reduced. Only we can find the two segments, and there are 4 walking legs from the cephalothorax. And the first walking leg is bifurcated into 2 at the anterior part. So this is, we call it as chelicea. The bifurcated, the first walking leg, we call it as chelated leg or chelicea. Chelicea. There are one pair of eyes, and the carapace is very, very tough in case of crab. Okay. So the next is the daphnia. So daphnia is economically important because they are indicators of the pollution. Okay. These are the examples of the crustacean. The crustacean means there is a fusion of the cephalothorax and it is covered by the very, very tough chitinous plate, which we call it the carapace. Okay. In case of prawns, there is a 5 pairs of walking legs. In case of crab, there are 4 pair of walking legs. Okay. And important that the crabs, the abdomen is highly reduced, but in case of prawns, there are 6 abdominal segments. Okay, you can see the structures which are useful for the swimming. They are uropods and epipods, and there is the tail cell. The characteristic features you can see in the anterior end the rostrum, and which is protecting them from the enemies. Okay, all these things are important. So tomorrow we will continue with the other classes, and we will also start with the cockroach.